Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Crawford Lecture. My name is Melissa Grisalfi. I'm so excited that you're here to join us. We're just going to give everyone a couple of minutes, or really just 1 minute, to log on, and then we'll get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Crawford Lecture. If you're just logging in, we're just going to give everyone a minute to get in, and then we will get started. Okay, it's 7:01, and I want to make sure we take full advantage of the time we have with our guests this evening. So we're going to get started. Welcome to the annual Crawford Lecture. This is an annual lecture that we host here in residential colleges that focuses on women and engaged citizenship and leadership. The lecture began in 2014 and was established in honor of Frank Armstrong Crawford Vanderbilt, who's credited with being the person who encouraged Cornelius Vanderbilt to donate the funds that launched the founding of this university. Tonight we have author Amelia Nagoski, who is co-author of a new book written with her sister called Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. I'm going to actually let the moderator of our panel tonight introduce her fully. So let me start by introducing our moderator. Our moderator this evening is Samantha York, who is one of our own Vanderbilt colleagues. She is the academic skills coach for the Center for Student Wellbeing. Her interests are about the ways that people are live together here on campus and thrive in this academic environment. So she works with students to find novel and sort of innovative ways to thrive here on campus. And she's always really excited about meeting with students in the Center for Student Wellbeing and helping you to figure out how to make your time here at Vanderbilt a success. She's therefore the perfect person to be moderating our panel tonight as we think about other ways that this really kind of like performative environment that we are here at Vanderbilt, along in the time of the intense stress of the pandemic and the kind of pace that we have, has led us to where we are today, which is tired. So I'm going to turn this over to Samantha with my gratitude and let her get the ball rolling.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am so insanely excited about this. I've been pulling material from various talks already and using in my work with students. So I'm really looking forward to taking a lot in and getting a lot of good discussion from you guys and some good questions. So please drop things in the Q&A as we go, and we will get through just as much as we can. That said, if this is one of those times where you need to sit and ride and enjoy and take it in, you can do that too. We are here for all of it. It is my joy to introduce Amelia Nagoski, DMA, which stands for Doctorate of Musical Arts. She's an associate professor and coordinator of music at Western New England University. Her job is to run around waving her arms and making funny noises and generally doing whatever it takes to help singers get in touch with their internal experience, which sounds a little bit like coaching. We should follow up again after this. She recently co-authored a book with her twin sister, Emily. That book is Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. 100% recommend. She lives in New England with her husband, 1 cat, and 2 rescue dogs. Thank you, Amelia. The floor is yours.
Fantastic. I am going to share my screen to show a PowerPoint. Hold on. Share sound, optimize for video clip, and share. Fantastic. The PowerPoint, I have discovered students, when I teach online, like to have a thing to stare at that's more, I don't know, dynamic than a talking head. So the PowerPoint is completely optional. All the visuals are totally optional. I will describe everything. So if there's anyone who has like a visual impairment and isn't interested in the PowerPoint, you won't need it. You won't miss anything. Or if you like to like put on your headphones and listen on Bluetooth while you watch your dishes or something, I will not be offended. If you walk away and you're just listening, that's fine too. Um, so hi, I am Amelia Nagoski, and I'm a college professor, and I've been teaching online. So this is what I've learned about teaching online so far. I do have a doctorate of musical arts in conducting. I am a conductor, not a trained conductor, the wavy arm kind of conductor. This is just to show you. So if I'm a musician and I have a doctorate in music, why did I write a book about feelings and stress management? In particular, it's a feminist book about feelings and stress management. And that story begins with my identical twin sister. Her name is Amelia Nagoski. She is author of the New York Times bestselling Come As You Are, the surprising new science that will transform your sex life, now in its second edition, so the science is even newer. Surprises are even newer. Anyway, she wrote this book all about sex and women's sexuality, the science, and went all over the country talking to people about it. And women would come up to her after that talk, say, I love your book, all that sex science, that's great, but you know what really struck home with me? That like half a chapter about feelings and stress. She had to put that in the book because it turns out the best predictor of a woman's sexual well-being, surprise, it's her overall well-being, so stress and feelings come into it. She was so surprised, though. She came and told me, look, these women are telling me it's the stress and the feelings and not the sex science. And I said, yeah, I was not surprised at all. Because as part of my musical training, I like attended a conservatory where they do that stereotypical, like break you down to build you back up. That's kind of a real thing that happens. And you learn to feel feelings and express them on stage for the purpose of performance. So I know that it's a learnable skill. I know it can be taught and learned to just about anybody. I also know that just because you learn to do it on stage doesn't mean you learn to do it in your real life. Because when I was in my doctoral program, I ended up in the hospital with stress-induced pain that the doctors were like, it's just stress, go home and relax. What? So I learned a lot of things starting with a big pile of research that Emily gave me. And when I learned it, it saved my life. So I reminded Emily of that. And she said, oh, we should write a book about that. So we did. We wrote it together. It is Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. And yes, it's also a New York Times bestseller now. Totally excited about that. Anyway, tonight, we're going to go through a couple of the biggest, most important lessons that people like to take away from this book. There will be at least 7 concrete, specific, evidence-based strategies for dealing with stress that you can use right now, right here, to start to feel better. Even before the things that cause your stress go away, tonight you'll have things you can do to feel better right now. We're also going to talk about a barrier, about why you're not already doing that stuff. Now, in the book, we focus on the experience of women, but the same dynamics are going to be true for just about any marginalized population. So members of the LGBTQIA plus community, people with disabilities, people of color, et cetera, et cetera. Any of the things where you're not, thin, rich, white, highly educated, cis, straight, male. If you don't perfectly conform to all those things, there's going to be pressure from society for you to fit into that mold. And it's literally impossible for anybody to be what society wants us to be. So that barrier, we're going to give that a name, and then we're going to talk about a cure, because really the most important thing here is solutions. Solutions. But in order to understand why these solutions work, we got to deal with what the thing is. We're going to talk about feelings, but the science of feelings. If you've seen any of my sister Emily, if you've seen any of her 3 TED Talks, every time she talks in public, basically, she says that emotions are like tunnels. You have to move all the way through the darkness to get to the light at the end. And my light just went out, so I might be darker now. That's why. I don't know what's going on. Emotions. Here's our tunnel that if you're not looking at the PowerPoint right now, you can see that there's this icy tunnel that leads away, and we are in the darkness. We need to move all the way through to get to the end, which is a beautiful metaphor and a great way to understand and relate to feelings, but like what actually happens in your body. Here it is. Okay. Imagine yourself back in the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness on like the plains of savannah. The savannas of Africa. And here comes the most dangerous land animal in Africa, the hippo. They're so cute, but so deadly. So here it is, coming at you, and they're faster than you think, and you're running, and you're running, and you escape, and you get to your village, and you run through, and you find an open door, and you close the door, and you slam it, and you're holding it shut, and you're shaking and frightened, and the hippo's looking for you, and then it finally gives up and walks away. Hippo, grumpy hippo walking away and gone, and you are safe in your house, and you feel elated and relieved and so grateful to be alive, and you love your friends and family, and you look outside and the sun is shining brighter. I skipped all of the things. I forgot the freaking out and the running. There's the graphic for the guy. What happens in that moment of freak out is not just like, oh, I'm scared, as though there's some like mystical, magical thing that has happened. No, it's a release of cortisol and adrenaline and glucocorticoids that change every system in your body. Because when you are trying to escape from a hippo, do you need ovulating? No. Do you need keeping the flu virus away? No. So your reproductive system changes, your immune system changes, your digestive system changes, every system in your body, your circulatory system, of course, your respiratory system, of course. Every system in your body is affected. To save your life, to limit the use of resources to just the things you need absolutely right now. So you do that running, you escape, the hippo has walked away, and you feel, That is the complete stress response cycle. You use up all of those neurotransmitters. You use up that electrical response, and it burns itself all the way through the completed stress response cycle. Now, unfortunately, these days, people are not really chased by hippos very often. But instead, we have a stressor, and maybe it's, you gotta go to the bursar's office and write a check for some fee that you owe that you didn't know about, and it's, oh God, I gotta go to the thing, and you gotta go stand in line, and you're freaking out, but like inside, you gotta go stand in line in order to get rid of this thing that has caused your body to feel like it's under threat, to feel like it's being stressed. It has the same response, basically. There's a very limited amount of ways that your body can respond to a stressor. So there's adrenaline and cortisol and glucocorticoids in different amounts and to different degrees and a different balance. But wow, it is still there. And can you run to escape fees? Can you run to get away from traffic? Can you fight your way into a parking lot to find a space that's near where your class is? It feels like you want to, but you can't. Civilized society demands that the things that cause our stress, we're not allowed to go fight them. We're not allowed to run away from them. We have to just be calm and polite and smile. And that's how people get along in a large community. It's totally necessary. Unfortunately, it means that that stress response never gets completed. So what we need to do instead is to separate the thing that causes the stress from the stress in our bodies. So if we're saying that emotions are tunnels, you have to find your way all the way through the darkness to get to the light at the end. When we get stuck in the middle of that cycle because we have to smile and be polite for whatever reason, then we have not gone all the way through the tunnel. We are stuck in the tunnel. Burnout happens when we are stuck in the tunnel because we haven't gone all the way through the stress response cycle. In order to fix that in modern society, we have to get unstuck by dealing with the stress itself, the stress in our bodies, which is almost always a separate process from dealing with whatever caused our stress. We can't fight or flight our way through a paper that's due in 2 days, So how do we deal with the stress itself? How do we get unstuck and deal with the stress in our bodies? Here's it is. This is your 7 concrete, specific, evidence-based ways to complete the stress response cycle. Here's number 1. It's physical activity, of course. When you're being chased by a hippo, what do? You run. Yeah. And physical activity does not need to be running. It can be literally any movement of your body at all. It can be running. It can be getting on the elliptical machine. It can be your Zumba class. It can be yoga. It can be just slow-moving Tai Chi. It could be laying in bed and tensing all of your muscles until you can't hold them anymore, and then you let them go, and it feels like a big release. Literally any physical activity will help inform your body that it has reached a place that is safe and it doesn't have to be holding on to that stress response anymore. Thing number 2 is sleep. Haha, I'm talking to college students. Yeah, and probably almost everybody who's within the sound of my voice right now is probably sleep deprived because that's in college that happens. You need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. I know like people say 8, but it's not 8. You might need 7 or you might need 9, and that is normal. You're not lazy because you need 9 hours of sleep, right? You're not a deficient, morally deficient person because you need more sleep. But we have learned something about moral value related to sleep, haven't we? And that's going to be related to the barriers we talk about. One of the reasons sleep is so important is because in the various cycles of sleep, your dreams and other mental processes allow your brain to kind of rehearse and go through stuff that happened in the past, just that day, previous weeks, previous years in your lifetime. All that stuff works through and gets resolved so that when you wake up, things look better in the morning. I hated that expression. Sleep on it. Things will look better in the morning. And I thought, well, why are they going to look better in the morning? Nothing's going to change. The circumstances aren't going to change. My problem won't magically solve itself in the morning. But what changes in the morning is me, my capacity to look upon whatever the problem is. My brain has changed. My body has changed. And that puts me at, to have a greater skill and ability to deal with whatever caused the stress. So yeah, it's totally true. 7 to 9 hours, bare minimum, 4 consecutive hours. Yes, napping will absolutely help make up for a sleep deficit. And no, it doesn't have to be every single night. If you're getting a little bit of sleep Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you can really sleep late on Thursday, normal sleep Friday, and then like sleep till noon on Saturday. If you work it out so it's an average over the course of a week or a month, you'll be fine. Just be aware that there are dangers associated with sleep deprivation, and I'm sure your wellness office will be glad to tell you everything you need to know about sleep hygiene and what's necessary for sleep and how dangerous it is to be sleep deprived. It's equivalent to being intoxicated, legally intoxicated over the legal limit for blood alcohol. So, thing number 1 was physical activity. Thing number 2 was sleep. Nobody's surprised yet, right? Y'all know that these things are good for you. One of the reasons is because they complete the stress response cycle. Thing number 3 is imagination. And this is the first one that really worked for me. I always exercised. I went to the gym. I'm a good girl and I do what I'm told. And I did the best I could, getting as much sleep as I can. But when Emily gave me some research that said that the imagination can initiate a stress response cycle, because if you've ever just lain in bed sweating and shaking and nervous about the thing that's happening tomorrow, there is no threat near you. It's your imagination has decided there's a threat, and your imagination can initiate a stress response. That means that your imagination can complete a stress response. So how I used this was that I would be on the elliptical machine just like always, doing my normal thing, but instead of just reading a magazine or watching TV, I imagined myself as Godzilla, tromping on the university where I was getting my doctorate, the parking lot and the bursar's office, and that mile you have to drive a loop around to find a parking space. And when I got to the end of that workout, I felt elated and powerful and glad to be alive, and the sun shined brighter, and I love my friend. It was that completed feeling. And it was the first time I'd ever really felt my body change in that way. And the good news is that you don't even just have to bring yourself through it by imagining a story. This can also work if you're reading one of those books that makes you laugh and cry, and you get to the end of it and you put it down, you're like, that was amazing. When you have that physical response, that's because something has physically shifted in your body. Or that movie where at the end and you're all walking out of the theater. Remember when we used to go to theaters? But you're leaving the movie going, that was amazing. And you feel stronger and more powerful. And everything, all the colors seem to be a little bit brighter. Whatever that experience is like for you, that can happen because your imagination has gone through that hero's journey of conflict and resolution. Because your imagination can complete a stress response cycle. So that's our third concrete, specific, evidence-based way to complete a stress response cycle. Number 4 is an extension of number 3. Your imagination can be used to make a thing. And this is the tool of creative self-expression. If you are a singer, dancer, actor, painter, sculptor, knitter, crafter, paper crafts of any kind, any kind of creating of a thing. If you like to cook and like experiment with new recipes, that can also be an act of creative self-expression. The trick to it is not to make this thing, this expression of yourself and your feelings and your energy, not to make it for someone else, not for sale, not for a purpose. Having a goal to meet kind of detracts from the capacity of creative self-expression to be really that pouring forth of unpleasant, difficult feelings and putting them someplace safe outside of you. But when you make the thing just for the joy, just for the pleasure of the process of making, so keeping a journal, not necessarily like writing a novel and creating like sentences that are perfect, but just like gushing out something onto a page, anything. It's that process of digging up all the feelings that are left in your muscles, letting all those neurotransmitters get poured out of you and pouring them onto whatever you're making. That is the process of creative self-expression that can complete a stress response cycle. That's four concrete, specific, evidence-based ways you can complete the stress response cycle. Number 5 is a big old cry. And this is another one that I hated, like sleep. Oh, have a good cry, you'll feel better. Well, why? Because crying isn't going to solve my problem. I was one of those people. I used to say that crying doesn't solve anything. And my sister was one of those people who was like, have a good cry, you'll feel better. Turns out she was right, and I was wrong. Turns out, no, crying will not probably solve the thing that caused your stress, but it can absolutely move you through a stress response cycle. So you get home and you slam the door and you just like collapse against the door and you can't even like make it to the bathroom, and you just sob on the floor for like 4 minutes. The trick to it, this is why I didn't know. This is what I had to learn to understand how to make this work. That when you cry to complete the stress response cycle, you have to take whatever caused you to cry, whatever event inspired this moment of emotional outburst, and you put it on a shelf for a minute. And you don't feed the crying thoughts about, I can't believe she said that. I can't believe he did that. You set those aside and you just turn toward the experience of crying. How hot do I feel? How many tears are falling? How much tension is in my face, in my shoulders? How many fluids are oozing out of my orifices? Like all the nitty gritty bodily physical experience of the crying. You turn to that without judgment. You just notice it and go, yeah, this is what crying is. And you let yourself cry until it's done, because feelings are tunnels. You move all the way through the darkness to get to the light at the end. So you go through all the mucus and the fluids and you get to, and you feel better, not because anything's changed, not because the outside causes of the crying have been cured, but because your body has changed. Your physiology has shifted to a place where your body knows that it's safe. Closely related to number 5 is number 6, which is laughter. And I sometimes have played like this cool, fun video of a horse with a rubber chicken. It makes everybody laugh, but like technology problems mean that this doesn't always work. So instead I'm going to sing you a song. And people think it's funny, so this is our like moment to have a little, relaxing break. The words are on the screen, and if you're offended by the F word, then you might want to like turn it off for a minute. Or if you're like at work or something and these kind of things aren't appropriate, like turn your speakers down. So you've been duly warned. This is a swearing song. It's called the So Annoyed Song by Amelia Nagoski. It goes like this. Is it plugged in? Did I turn it on? Why won't it fucking work? Are the cables old? Is the connection loose? Why won't it fucking work? I'm so annoyed, so annoyed. Why won't it fucking work? Is my sound source selected? Is my webcam on? Why won't it fucking work? Did I join with audio or click on mute? Why won't it fucking work? Oh yeah, I'm so annoyed, so annoyed. Why won't it fucking work? Every time I think I know what to do, it never fucking works. I reset what I expect, then something new goes wrong. It never fucking works. Still I try, someday I'll make it work. So next time you're in a Zoom class that goes wrong. Maybe you'll get this stuck in your head. It's based on a true story. Yes. Concrete, specific, evidence-based strategy number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is laughter. So maybe you got like a little giggle out of my song, but the thing you need to know is that it can't be social, posed, fake laughter that you use to like smooth over an awkward moment. It has to be like actual laughter. The most effective kind is the like belly laughter that's ridiculously loud, a little out of control, and maybe kind of embarrassing. Like that laughter that's like a physical experience that leaves your abs sore for like an hour. That laughter is going to move you through a complete stress response cycle. And of course, number 7, concrete, specific, evidence-based strategy that will complete the stress response cycle is connection, affection, other people or beings at least. Connection can be as little as a friendly exchange with your barista. Good morning, you say. I'd like a vanilla chai latte. Hey, I really like your earring. And they say, here's your vanilla chai latte. Thank you very much. Just that is enough. The research shows that just that is enough to make both your day and your barista's day a little bit better. It's enough to tell your body, oh, right, the world's a safe place. If you want to go big on the connection, affection, stress cycle completing, a 20-second hug will change everything physical about you. Your blood pressure will lower, your hormones will change balance, and it's not about the 20 seconds. It's about you and somebody you love and trust enough to hug for 20 seconds. Each support your own center of gravity. Put your arms around each other and just stay there for 20 seconds-ish. Until long enough that you're going to feel your physiology shift. You're going to feel something change when your body says, oh, right, this person who loves me and I love them and we are safe together. If you have someone in your life who you can kiss for 6 seconds, a potentially awkward long time to kiss someone unless you really love and trust them. Again, it's not about the 6 seconds. There's a relationship scientist who did this research, who describes the 6-second kiss as being long enough to make a special moment, not long enough to make the kids late for school. You're a little young for that kind of reference, but you can kind of get the idea of how long it is. It's long enough that when you put your mouth together with that person's mouth, it feels so intimate and close. And as you spend time there, your body learns, right, I'm safe, I'm home, and you can feel that shift. And that might be the most time-efficient way to complete a stress response cycle and to feel more comfortable, but it's pretty intense. So there you go, that's 7. There's no like actual picture of laughter on your screen, but they were. Physical activity, sleep, or other kinds of rest will work too. Imagination, creative self-expression, a big old cry, laughter, and connection. These are 7 concrete specific ways you can use right now to complete the stress response cycle in your body to feel better without anything external changing. You don't have to wait for the world to be a just and safe place for you to feel better. In fact, you need to use these strategies to feel better before the world becomes a just and safe place for all people, because if you do not do what you need to do to keep your body safe and alive, then who's going to fight for safety and justice for all people? Yeah. So we say in the book that you can't spell resist without rest. All kinds of caring for yourself, completing the stress response cycle is going to be so good for you, and it's going to allow you to be a person who contributes positively to the whole wide world. And, you know, immediately to the people around you, and in the long run to everybody. So you're probably not super surprised that all these things are good for you. I bet you all knew, like, okay, physical activity and sleep, they're good for me. So why aren't we already doing them? What is coming between us and these things that we know are good for us? We all know we're supposed to eat vegetables, right? But like, why aren't we? Is there something about, is it unpleasant to laugh? Why are we not laughing more? What is coming between us? There is a barrier. And this barrier is language we adapted from a book called Down Girl, The Logic of Misogyny by a moral philosopher, Dr. Kate Mann. She posits in this world a moral world where there are two kinds of people: the human beings who have a moral obligation to be their humanity, live it, to express it, to acquire whatever resources are necessary to be their humanity. And the other set of people are human givers who have a moral obligation to give their humanity, their time, their lives, their bodies to the human beings. Now, in this kind of black and white cartoon illustration, knowing that this is from a book called Down Girl, The Logic of Misogyny, she's illustrating a dynamic that occurs between two sexes. Which one do you think the women are? The beings or the givers? Yeah, in this big cartoonish, broad stroke, black and white exaggeration of a system, women have this expectation to give their time, their lives, their bodies in service of the comfort and convenience of men. Now, of course, femininity is not the only point of oppression in society, not by a long shot. So if you experience any kind of friction between who you are and who the world expects you to be, you don't conform to an ideal that is held up as the only way to be in a place of power to create change in the world, then you might be suffering from what we call human giver syndrome, which is where you've kind of internalized and believe that you have this moral obligation to give your time, your life, your body to someone who feels entitled to it. Here are the symptoms. Human giver syndrome happens if you believe you have a moral obligation. You owe it to your partner, your family, the world, even to yourself. You owe it to be at all times pretty, happy, calm, generous, and attentive to the needs of others. And of course, we can picture this in women, but we can also picture this behavior in people of color, in people with disabilities, how happy people in a wheelchair have to be to make up for the fact that the other people are uncomfortable with a disability, and we have to prove to them, no, ha ha, see, everything's fine, I'm just a like, okay, so you get my point. Symptom 2, believing that any failure to be at all times pretty, happy, calm, generous, attentive to the needs of others, failing at any time makes you a failure as a person, that your failure means you deserve punishment. And if nobody else is around to punish you, you'll go ahead and punish yourself. And finally, believing that these are not symptoms of a syndrome, but just normal and true ideas. When Emily did a summary about this for an app for women, for things, the producers of the app lived in the Ukraine, and they wanted to include like the word theoretically or maybe, as though it might be true that anyone has a moral obligation to give their time, their lives, and their bodies. Because, I mean, the Ukraine is even more, misogynistic than we are here. And Emily was like, no, this is a false belief. No one has a moral obligation to be at all times pretty, happy, calm, generous, and attentive to the needs of others. And no one is entitled to the giving from anyone else. And when she has asked students, like, okay, so how do we solve this problem? How do we make the world a just place where human giver syndrome, nobody falls victim to human giver syndrome? And, the first response a lot of students have is, oh, well, everybody's a human being. Everybody's entitled to live and be their humanity. But then what happens to society if everyone feels entitled to all the resources? Then we're all fighting each other for it. And we end up with the world we have now, really. Basically, it's what we have, where, it's not just and equitable for everyone. But what if instead everyone was a giver? Everyone not had human giver syndrome, but was simply a giver, felt morally obliged to care for the people around them. If everyone was a giver and nobody felt entitled to the time, life, or body of someone around them, then no one would fall through the cracks. No one would get left behind. No one would sit on the couch watching TV while somebody else, who also worked a full day, would be washing the dishes and cooking the meal all by themselves. Yeah? If both people in that relationship were givers, the person on the couch would be able to turn to the person who's washing the dishes and say, let me help you with that. We both had a long day. Let's get it over with. Many hands make light work. And they care for each other and they protect each other. And happily, this is also going to be the cure for human giver syndrome. I should have given you a warning before I showed this slide. This is a picture of a sex doll. It's an illustration of human giver syndrome because it's really easy for people to think, oh, well, this stuff is from the 1950s, right? Like, we don't believe in that whole housewife thing. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. We live in a post-racist society, people say. We live in a post-feminist, we don't need that anymore. Well, this is a sex doll. This is just invented like 3 years ago. 3 years ago, in the 20 teens, this sex doll was invented, and the title of this, the name of this product is True Companion. What makes a sex doll a true companion as opposed to like a real human woman? Sex doll doesn't have needs. Sex doll doesn't argue. Sex doll is always available. She has no choice but to give her time, life, body, everything that she has and is to the person who owns her. So this is an extreme illustration. And it gives people feelings. So here's a picture of Joan from Mad Men in the elevator with Peggy saying, I want to burn this place down. I feel you, Joan. The bad news, Joan, is that you're in the 60s and 40 years later, they're still going to be inventing and believing that some members of the population don't deserve to have their humanity honored the same way as everybody else. So sorry, Joan, sorry, Peggy, we still got a ways to go. The good news is that there is a cure for human giver syndrome. If you feel like, oh yeah, I have a moral obligation to be pretty, happy, calm, generous, tend to these of others, how do you get out of that? How do you recover from human giver syndrome and be a giver who doesn't burn out, who makes her way or his way or their way all the way through the tunnel? The good news is that the answer comes from young adult fiction, YA. You've probably all read or at least seen the movie Hunger Games, right? There's this dystopian future where the capital of this divided society, it requires each of the districts to send 2 children to fight each other in an arena to the death. And there's 12 districts, and so 24 children are fighting to the death in this arena. And our hero is Katniss Everdeen. She's terrific with a bow and arrow. She's an archer. And before she goes into the game, her mentor tells her, Katniss, when you're in there, remember who the real enemy is. And so days later, Katniss is fighting for her life. She thinks she's about to die. And here comes this guy. She doesn't know. Is he on her side? Should she just shoot him right here, right now? And he says, Katniss, remember who the real enemy is. And instead of shooting him, she takes her bow and she points it up at the dome, at the arena, at the game itself, and symbolically at the people who created that game. Because us here fighting down on the ground doesn't solve anything. It only hurts us. It reaps us and eliminates us from the pool of people who can create change. So what we need to do to create real change, to help each other survive and thrive, is to fight upwards towards the system that is broken, that is trying to convince us, to lie to us, to say, oh yeah, no, resources are limited. Love is limited. Time is limited. Care is limited. They're not limited. It's a lie told to us to make us fight for resources when actually there's not a limit. We can all care for each other and we will all have plenty because the world is a safe place if only we allow it to be. So when we turn toward each other, not with our bow drawn and our arrow nocked and ready to fly, instead we turn toward each other with kindness and compassion. That is how no one stays stuck in the tunnel. Emotions are tunnels. You have to make your way through the darkness to get to the light at the end. When we get stuck in the tunnel, that is how we burn out. And the cure for burnout is not 7 concrete specific evidence-based strategies from Clean Stress Response Cycle. Because if you do say, get a full night's sleep, that's one of the strategies, right? And you say to your friend in class the next day, I got 9 hours of sleep last night and I feel amazing. And your friend says, oh, that's so nice for you. I mean, self-care is so important. I was up till 3 finishing that paper. And so I'm all done with my paper already. And you slept all night. So good for you, though. Self-care is so important. that person is not turning toward your experience with kindness and compassion. That person is not contributing to your well-being. Instead, that is now a barrier to managing your stress, because that thing you did that was so important, that was so good for you, has now become a source of stress. What if instead you said, I got 9 hours of sleep, I feel amazing. And your friend said, I got 3 hours of sleep. And you said, I am so sorry. Let's find a way for you to be protected so that you can get a good night's sleep. Because wow, I have learned that sleep is so good for me. It makes me a better student. It makes me a better friend. And when we all help protect each other, this is how the world changes. Cure for burnout is not self-care. It's all of us caring for each other, turning toward each other with kindness and compassion so that we don't get bogged down in the competition, this made up, invented, fake competition for resources. Just because one person gets an A doesn't mean that you will get a C. We can all get A's. Like, we don't have to compete for it. We can turn toward each other with kindness and compassion. And that is how we will all feel better and create a world where nobody falls through the cracks, where nobody is punished just for being unable to give until they are an empty container with nothing left. And that's going to be a better world for all of us to share with each other. And that is the end. Ta-da!
Wow. Thank you so much. I don't know that I've ever attended a talk that's gone from, that's included at least a ukulele and a sex doll and Katniss Everdeen and felt a little bit like church all at the same time, right? So this is good. Most of the questions we have currently are kind of from that first section about moving through the cycle. So I'm going to start with those, but I would invite y'all to drop some in the Q&A that respond to, I think, maybe that bigger piece. That was super exciting. So I think this is Destiny Garrett. Please excuse me if I've mispronounced your name at all. Has asked, if you're using your imagination to undergo that complete stress response, is it more efficient if you undergo an activity as well? So exercise, art, etc.
Yeah, not necessarily. You can use it in all by itself. I have found from look, everybody's different, and you're going to find what works for you. Emily is an exerciser. She can complete the stress response cycle by going for a bike ride. That has never, ever worked for me, not once. The only way I did it was through adding imagination to my workout. But you can absolutely do it in isolation. I have learned that it's most effective for me when I combine multiple things. People ask me a lot, well, what do you do that's most efficient for you? I like horseback riding because for me, I'm not like I'm a major introvert. So I like connecting. Instead of a 20-second hug or a 6-second kiss, I like to spend 30 minutes with my ass in a saddle and like communicating through the reins with this animal. And it's physical activity, it's connection, it's mindfulness practice all in one. So for me, I have found that if I combine multiple ones into a single activity, that it just like cuts right to the thing, and I get off the horse and I feel like the world is this better, safe place. So yes, you can absolutely do one at a time in isolation, especially if you feel really intensely that thing like really works for you. Absolutely. But if you find a way to do them in combination, you might discover that that's like
Awesome.
technical term. Yeah.
I like it. Mind blown. I want a little emoji to go with that. We've got a strategic and pragmatic question here, which is, how do you prevent your mind from wandering and creating more stress when using your imagination to work through the cycle?
That is a great question. And the answer is that it takes practice, because your brain has been trained to protect you. And one of the ways your imagination protects you is by imagining danger, where there probably isn't danger, but like your brain's like possible danger, possible danger, possible danger. Because when you're worried about danger, that means you can take steps to protect yourself. Whereas your brain was just like la da 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 da, and here comes danger, you're not ready, right? So it's a survival trait if your mind is always like worried about stuff. Great. However, you can change physically the way your brain works with practice. I'm so sorry that the answer to this is meditation and mindfulness practice. It sounds so dopey and hoopy doopy and touchy, but it's actually true. You can change the shape of your actual physical brain and therefore change how your brain actually functions. There's a ton of research about this. And if you just for 30 seconds keep your mind on your breath or on imagining some fish or like whatever it is that you can pay attention to, and notice your mind wandering and say, hi, you wandered, mind, come on back. And you just invite your mind back And through that kind of repetition, you actually reduce the amount of stray thoughts that come in. It's called monkey mind in the philosophy, that those monkey brain thoughts of just like scattered, blah, 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 that actually you can train your brain not to do that as much. I have personally done this, so I know that it's possible, and it's not just my story. There's like 15 years of really solid research that proves this. Meditation.
I really hope you guys were all listening to that. That if you take nothing else, it's actually don't take that single thing. Take all of the things.
If you take nothing else, let it be sleep. 7 to 9 hours.
Right.
Change nothing else in your life. Let it be sleep. But mindfulness. Oh, it feels so like buzzwordy and like really, but yeah, really.
Really. And if you want to practice it, you could always come to one of our Center for Student Wellbeing events. So there's the pitch. Moving back. Thank you. I'll slide you your $5 after this, I promise. We've got a kind of personal question that I think somebody mentioned in the beginning, that Vanderbilt is a fairly performative environment, and we're all very invested typically in looking like things are fine. And one of the movement among a number of us is trying to normalize failure and making like that recovery a part of it. So we have a student who asks, through my first year in college, failure has become no stranger to me. However, it's come to a point where rather than feeling like I'm coming out through the other end stronger and the wound healing, it feels like a wound that keeps getting bruised over and over again. Have you experienced this? What helped you get through it? What are your tips?
Yeah. My doctoral program was a 3-year program. It took me 5 years to finish, and I was hospitalized twice. So yes, the bruising, God, that feels so true. Like that visceral, I'm so hurt by this situation, by these people, by these circumstances. Yeah, sometimes it takes a long time. And honestly, sometimes you need to just change the circumstances and get out of it because it's genuinely not healthy for you. But if it is a matter of actually, this is a salvageable situation and I can shape it in a way that is less injurious, that hurts me less, that doesn't injure me or wound me as much. If there's a way you can change the external circumstances, I don't know what resources are available to you, but I'm sure that some folks who are here tonight can probably help with resources to make that change. The one thing that you can do, even if you don't change those circumstances, it's the only thing that I actually did, was dealing with the stress inside my body and like turning toward the wound and making sure I washed it and I got disinfected and covered with a fresh bandage every day. I could never just ignore it and let it fester and think that I'd be fine if I kept going. I did that for a while, ended up in the hospital where like I was talking about a mental wound. It turned into a physical wound because it turns out your mind is in your body. Your brain is part of your nervous system, which touches literally every inch of your body. So when that stress happens, it is in your body. So this metaphorical psychological wound will turn into a physical wound unless you turn toward it and care for it every day. You got to keep the wound clean and fresh and also get away from the thing that keeps hurting you.
I love this two-part response. This is the thing, and then this is what we're doing to care in the meantime until the thing can be resolved. That is so powerful. I think especially when I'm thinking of many students are in situations where they feel a lack of control. And so having something to do. Trying to move a little bit to that, well, not quite systemic, but at least more of a hierarchical level. What are some activities that educators or supervisors can utilize to help students or employees complete the stress cycle and manage burnout?
Have an environment that is genuinely open to allowing them to be humans. So if I'm teaching a class and it's an hour and 20-minute class, don't penalize a student for leaving early or having to go to the bathroom or like having water in class or eating in class. Like, let there be humanity. Let that be a little bit messy. I know a lot of teachers have you have to grade a lot of stuff, so people turn stuff in late because life happens. So like build in a policy where students can turn in things late. Some things, not every. So for me in my syllabi, I let students turn in 3 things late. No penalty, no explanation. Just turn it in eventually 3 things. If it's more than 3 things, then we need to like shift around some of your priorities or whatever. But like, you don't need to email me. You don't need to tell me. 3 absences is also allowed. No explanation, no excuse, no reason. I don't care. Sometimes you have to miss class. like nobody can go to every class. That's bananas to think everybody's going to go to every class. So by all means, miss 3 classes. You don't have to tell me why. Sleep in. I don't care. Come to the rest of the classes. Or if you have to miss more than 3, like clearly there's something going on, please let me know. Like acknowledging feelings, and that negative emotions aren't bad emotions. Like we talk about feelings in class, and I'm really explicit about the fact that when I teach you music, what I'm teaching you about is humanity. I just got my internet is unstable, so sorry if I'm chopping up. But if there is a way that you as a supervisor or as a boss can let your people be people, be flexible, and allow them to have their humanity and to honor that, it's going to make them better at what they do. And it's going to make the world a better place, because they're going to go on to either graduate and work someplace else where they're going to create that same kind of environment for their people that they are supervising or teaching. And hey, wouldn't it be great if the whole world worked like that?
I just want like a banner behind me that reads, "Let there be humanity at all times." Now, I feel like that would be a great reminder for all of us.
Unfortunately, humans are messy and complicated, and the world really wants us to have things be on time. This is a result of the Industrial Revolution. Like, the world used to work on a human clock. But unfortunately now we have like 9 to 5 and check in and check out and hourly wages. And I'm sorry, capitalism is bad, but it's what we got. So if we can learn to at least turn toward each other with compassion while we're human messes trying to be like pushed into this neat little box, like that's a hard situation to be in, but we can survive it and even thrive as long as we're caring for each other.
Amen. I love the idea that the disruption of the last year might offer us an opportunity to make some more conscious decisions about workplaces and workflow and obligations and 9 to 5s moving back into whatever we move into next.
I hope so.
I have a sweet question. How do I trust that what I'm doing is enough, even when I know I'm not where I want to be yet? I'm assuming this is about care and coping.
If the question is, how do I know I'm enough? The answer
that
is
I'm doing enough. Sorry.
That you're doing enough and that you are enough. The answer is that you are enough. And if you're doing what you can, that's enough.
I love that.
Like, I want to make that more elaborate and to convince you that it's true. But that feeling that you're not enough, that you're not doing enough, that's, nope. You're doing enough. If you're doing what you can, that's enough. If you're doing nothing at all, because that's all you can do, that's enough.
I really hope that I'm sure, sorry, I'm sure one person typed that, and I'm sure lots of people felt it. So I'm hoping you guys heard that and heard that answer. We've brought in an expert, and you are enough, right?
Yeah. The feeling of being not enough just in general is what the research says, is that when you have that feeling, that's what's actually going on. It's a form of loneliness. So really, the only action that you might take to change that is not to do more. It's just to reach out to another human being and say, I feel like I'm not doing enough. And they go, oh, you're already beating yourself. Like, you're doing way too, you need to slow down. Like, reach out.
Love it. Connection, always connection.
There's a social psychologist, Jonathan Haidt, who's written several books, and he says humans are 90% chimp, 10% bee. We are a hive species. We need each other. The need to connect is a biological drive, the same as hunger and thirst and sleep. If you don't connect with other people, you will starve of that nutrient that we must have.
I love this. I do have an anonymous question that I imagine more than one person may have, actually. How are these steps impacted by, or how can they impact those who carry a diagnosis like generalized anxiety, panic disorder, or those of us who maybe just say more predisposed to those stress experiences?
Yeah, as someone diagnosed with, at times, periods of very severe depression and now anxiety and other, like, they work great. Now, sometimes these things can be a barrier to getting the help you need or to taking the steps you need. And if that is happening, where like the thing that's wrong with you prevents you from doing the things that are going to help you get that thing, I have so very been there. The good news is that just doing a tiny bit is enough. Just do a little bit. And when you do that little bit, it tells your body for a minute, I'm safe, I'm calm for a minute. And once you crack that door open, it becomes so much easier to push it the rest of the way open. You don't have to fix it now or be perfect. You just do a little tiny bit. And what happens then is gradually things become lighter and easier, and the door opens to a new room, and you're like, oh my God, there's a whole other room here. And you find the next door, and you're like, there's another door, and you go through that door, and there's another room full of more doors, and it gets easier as you go, because it sounds like it's so long and complicated, and these big systemic changes that have to be made, but once you start, it gets easier. So just do a little thing. That's all you got to do. There's no pressure to do like, you have to exercise for 20 minutes 3 times a week. That is, no. Take one deep breath. That's where you start.
Love it. All right. I want to honor our time, and I feel like this could be a really great last question. If the secret to burnout isn't self-care, but care for others, how many people is enough? Is a dyad enough? Do we need multiple sources to conquer this burnout? What's next?
Yeah. What a fantastic question. This idea that you are enough and you are doing enough is completely true. It's also true, that idea, like that, remember that movie with the "you complete me" thing? It's also true that we need each other. And here's what happened to me and Emily. Like, we grew up, we're identical twins raised in the same household, but we grew up, like there was some stuff in our family, like mental illness and addiction, and it was not like the best family of origin. And we grew up not talking to each other, not even liking each other very much into our 30s. Like, we grew up and we didn't care that the other person existed. And then we noticed that she got a master's degree in counseling, and I got a master's degree in choral conducting. And Emily went, we both got academic degrees in how to listen and feel feelings. And we went, oh. And that opened the first door. And then we started writing this book together, and that opened another door. And all the research said connection and love is like scientifically proven to be the cure for everything. And once we had opened that door, and like we looked over this wall we had built between ourselves and went, oh, we've both been waiting for this. We've both been looking to knock down this barrier and to open to each other. And what that changed for us is like, now we have a sisterhood like we never had before, like the kind of sisterhood that sisters are supposed to have. And that didn't happen because we were like trying to change the world. It happened because we were convinced by scientific research that we had to do this. But then once you find out that it happens, you discover this person has also been waiting for me, for this. We all actually want this. So once we take this one small step, what that led to was our capacity to write this book, which hopefully is helping some people and giving us a way to like talk to other people that's hopefully more relatable than just like, here's some peer-reviewed research, but like to really honestly tell the story of turning towards someone with kindness and compassion, and learning that that is not a drain of your resources. For almost everyone, when you turn towards someone else's difficult feelings and they pour their heart out to you, for almost everybody, that's going to fill you with energy. It's going to fill you with compassion and care. Your only responsibility in that moment is to be their cheerleader and on their side. Your job is not to solve their problem. It's just to say, oh, I'm on your team and I feel the same thing as you, and rah, together let's have these that. You both walk away from that conversation, and this is the first door you've opened. You've had one conversation where you've created a little more energy between you, and what that gives you is the capacity then to pass that on to someone else. So none of us is ever enough by ourselves, but we can only do and only use the resources we already have. The good news is, though, that once we start to share it with each other, we don't drain and eliminate our own resources by sharing with each other. We actually create more energy and more love as we share with more people. So just start with one conversation, one 15-minute conversation where you let somebody vent to you. whatever they need to do, and then 15 minutes where you vent to them, whatever you need to say, and they're on your side. And in that 30 minutes, you will change yourselves, give yourselves the capacity to change more people around you, and they will have the capacity to change more people. So there's just start with a 15-minute conversation, and you'll change the world eventually.
And absolutely so amazing. I'm so glad all I had to do was take notes, because that's all I've been doing. Thank you so much, Samantha and Amelia. This has been incredible. And Amelia, I really hope that you're going to be recording that song for us to all play to ourselves.
It's on YouTube.
It is. Oh, it's a relief. All right.
My brother-in-law insisted that I record it. And he put it on YouTube. I think you can find it.
Oh, I'm sure we will add the link to the video when we put it. So
sorry.
That's great news. Thank you both so much for spending your time with us. So many people have written in the chat how much they appreciated this and how much they took away from this. And actually, for folks who are like, ooh, meditation, maybe I'll check it out. If you don't know, and in fact, Vice Provost Stratton actually put this in the chat. She and Associate Provost Stratton and Vice Provost Beasley do a meditation every Friday morning that's free. And so if you want to check it out, then you can. So thank you so much. This has been incredible, and I hope we get to have another chat again soon.
Great.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great night.